right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Running with Wolves. I am so excited about today's episode because I do feel like it's really what helps separate other businesses from each other, from their competitors within their industry, and makes them stand out from the crowd and sound different. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I genuinely feel like nowadays, especially on TikTok, when you're doing like the mindless scroll, everyone and their mother sounds the same. Everyone is starting their videos the same. Everyone is saying the same thing. They're making the same points. But every time I see a video that really stands out from the crowd, I genuinely feel like it is because they are so good at storytelling. I don't know if you've ever listened to somebody talk or tell a story, but you can't take your eyes off of them. You can't stop listening to what it is that they're talking about. And if you are able to do that as a brand or a business, you will capture your audience's attention and be able to get them to actually consume what you're talking about, hear the points you're trying to make in a way that sounds interesting to them, which is going to make it so that your sales process becomes so easy. Because if you can capture someone's attention and get them engaged in a story you're telling, you'll actually get them to listen to what you're saying, which is then going to convert them into a sale. So if you guys don't know how to be a really good storyteller in your content, we're going to talk about it today. So let's get into it. So first I want to talk about really what is storytelling within marketing and how it drives sales. So storytelling, by our definition, is in that warming phase of content. So this is going to look like you using analogies, metaphors, examples, client or customer stories to make a point. So if I were talking about how, for example, the old era of marketing is dead. This is a really polarizing opinion that we have where we talk about what people used to do in their marketing, what people do now, and how what they used to do isn't creating the kind of results that it used to. And you need to keep up with, how marketing and sales, buyer behaviors, content consumption is shifting and changing. And essentially how you can do that in 2024. It'll go on and on and on every single year, right? If we are able to talk about that point, but tell a story about what the old era of marketing used to look like, whether it be our own story, whether it be a client story, whether it be a brand or a business example, we are able to capture someone's attention so much more because they're going to listen to what we're saying. Because how often are you much more likely to listen to a story rather than you are to listen to someone just making a point? A story has different plot points. It takes you through a journey. It captures your attention. You get emotionally tied to the characters in that story, right? There's so much to storytelling that it does for your consumer. For example, if you guys are on TikTok and you're watching like get ready with me videos, right? You guys all see it. In fact, there's actually a really funny trend that people were doing, like making fun of these videos, but it's like, get ready with me to go rob a bank, or like, get ready with me to talk about the time that my mom kicked me out when I was 5 years old, or something like that, right? They're telling a story while they're getting ready. If they were just getting ready and they're like, get ready with me, no one is going to watch that, but they're watching them get ready because they're telling a story. And these influencers are using storytelling to incorporate into their content to get people to watch them getting ready and watching them using the products that they're trying to push as an influencer. People are 10 times more likely to consume your content if you're telling a story because it's way more interesting and engaging than you just trying to make a point. So I want to talk about the key components of, really effective storytelling and kind of how to incorporate that into your content. So when it comes to storytelling, number one, you cannot just tell a story that no one is going to care about. I say this all the damn time, but your content is not about you, it's about your audience. So you need to be thinking about the stories I'm about to tell in my content. Do those matter to my target audience, right? So we talk about how our wolf funnel is attract, warm, convert. There are a couple of things that we do before and after that as well to make sure that the funnel really works properly. So we have the prep phase, which is like market research, competitor analysis, etc. And then we have the data review phase. That prep phase is basically what I'm talking about here. You have to make sure that you understand your audience to a T so that you know their struggles, you know their desires, you know the pop culture phenomena they're talking about, the TV shows, the movies, the podcasts, the music, the books that they're consuming right now. You need relevant, up-to-date information of what is your target audience's world so you can speak to those things and tell stories about those things. So you need to have a clear understanding of your target audience and the kind of stories that are going to capture their attention. If you are somebody who is selling a skincare brand and you're talking about a story about fitness coaching, that is not going to make any sense to your target audience. It's not going to be relevant, and they're probably not going to care about that. Maybe some of them will, but a lot of them won't, because that's not what they're there to consume. It's not a struggle of theirs. It's not a desire of theirs. It's not something that's relevant to them. So when it comes to effective storytelling, another key component of this is part of that attraction phase, right? Which is going to be a very strong hook. So you need to get someone's attention with a statement or a question. A lot of times when you're telling a story, you're going to either start out with the most, I would say, attention grabbing like plot point of that story, or you're going to start with the point that you want to make, i.e. the point that you want them to take home, the thing you want them to remember most about your story. So you're either going to start with a really exciting plot point or what you want them to take home from that story. And you're going to grab their attention by making that statement. So it's going back to that get ready with me example. It's why a lot of people will say, get ready with me while I tell you about the time I robbed a bank or something like that, right? They're telling you the most exciting part of that story. They're not saying it was a Tuesday morning and I'd just gotten a Starbucks and I was really, desperate for money at that point. So I decided I was going to rob a bank. No, they're saying I robbed a bank, right? Obviously terrible example. Or you could say like, if you were a skincare brand, get ready with me or do my skincare with me, while I tell you about the time that a facialist peeled my entire skin off or something like that, or gave me like a 3rd-degree burn on my face because of a peel, right? That is the most exciting plot point of that story. You're not saying, I was really trying to smooth my fine lines and wrinkles and thought I'd get a radiance peel, blah, blah, blah. No. If you were a marketer, right, you would say, get ready with me while I tell you about the time that I went viral and then nothing happened. Or get ready with me while I tell you about the time that, I created $100,000 in 24 hours from one piece of content, right? It's the most exciting part of that story. And this applies to any industry. So you want to hook them in with the most exciting part. Then when it comes to storytelling, you want to make sure that you keep things engaging, but also concise. A lot of mistakes that I see business owners make when they're storytelling in their content is they get very long-winded. Understand that you can tell a story while keeping each plot point really concise and descriptive. And in my opinion, it all comes down to your production plan. If you're sitting there and you're just off the cuff storytelling, you did no prepping, you really didn't think through the different plot points you were going to talk about, you didn't think about how you could creatively describe those different plot points, it's going to come across as, definitely somebody who's rambling, and your story is not going to feel as engaging. So it's really important to prep, obviously, before you go in and tell your story, and think about how you can describe each stage, each plot point of that story, and make sure that your audience stays engaged by keeping it concise but descriptive. Another part that's really important for effective storytelling is there needs to be a main takeaway to your story and a resolution to your story. So if you talk about, get ready with me, for the time that, when I tell you about the time that a facialist gave me a 3rd-degree burn on my skin, the main takeaway is going to be, you need to have an understanding of what your skin needs, what your skin struggles are, what kind of skin you have, so that you understand like the best treatments for you and not just like leave it up to the experts or something like that, right? That's the main takeaway that you want them to remember. They're also probably going to remember, don't ever get a peel ever again, because that's, just something that you're talking about. But you want them to have a main takeaway. If you also were talking about as a marketer, get ready with me about the time, for the time that I, created $100,000 in 24 hours from one piece of content. Your main takeaway from that could be, this was not a viral piece of content, but it was a piece of content that was highly converting for these reasons. And that's how you're going to, create converting content moving forward, right? That's the main takeaway. This is what I did, and this was the resolution. This is the main takeaway. Your resolution is going to be what happened at the end of that story. What was the exciting, triumphant result, right? You want to give people something to cheer on about or to get behind or to rally behind. So if you literally were like, yeah, and to this day, I'm still scarred from my facial peel, and unfortunately my skin will not grow back now, and that's the end of the story. People are like, oh, okay, all right, sounds good. But if you said, but then, after my facial peel, I learned so much about skincare that I was able to repair my skin barrier. And now I'm so proud of my skin. It's so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. I feel the most confident I've ever felt. That's something that is a resolution that people can rally behind. Same thing with storytelling for a service-based business. When you have a service-based business, like for example with marketing, you want to give people a resolution to rally behind. So for us, if we were talking about how we created 6 figures in 24 hours from one, piece of content, we could talk about how 30 days prior to that, we made a launch where no one ever inquired or bought. And then we made a couple of shifts and changes in terms of our content. That would be the main point, the main takeaway. And then from there, we talk about the resolution, which is now we're able to do that over and over and over again in our content because we know to go back to the basics to do blah, 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 right? So a lot of times when it comes to your storytelling, you want to hook people in. You want to tell a story that people actually care about. You want to give them something to take away from the story, and you want to give them a resolution to rally behind. So now that you guys know kind of the general framework for storytelling and what you can focus on when you have the correct messaging behind storytelling and the right framework behind storytelling, let's talk about the different ways that you can use content formats to storytell in your content. So here's the thing is that you have to think about what is going to be the most bingeable format of storytelling in your content. And a lot of times the most bingeable format is not necessarily video content that is not face to camera. So the couple of formats that we recommend for storytelling is going to be either face to camera videos or it's going to be graphic carousels. The reason that we say this is because face to camera videos, obviously someone is hearing you tell the story. It's an engaging piece of content because they're listening to you talk, they're watching you talk. It keeps them visually and verbally engaged. If you created, let's say, a B-roll video that had text on screen that was just all of the different plot points to that story, that's going to be really difficult for your audience to consume because they're trying to keep up with the video, read everything, and you're going to lose their attention very quickly. If you were not to do a face-to-camera video, you want to think about how to deliver those plot points in that story to your audience in little bite-sized pieces, which is probably going to come in the form of a graphic carousel, because you're able with each slide to give them little bite-sized pieces of information that are those plot points of the story that they can then consume at their own pace and swipe when they're ready. So the biggest thing you want to think about is consumability of your content. Face-to-camera videos, especially with TikToks, you can speed those up if you want to. So you're listening to someone talk, you're verbally staying engaged because you're watching them talk, and you can consume at your own pace. You can speed things up if you want to. Reels, not so much. B-roll content, not so much. You have to wait for the text to come up. So again, that graphic carousel, if you're not going to do video content, is really helpful for storytelling visually because you're giving a picture and it's probably going to be an infographic that has text on screen that they can consume at their own pace. So another way that I love storytelling is obviously using it in your emails. I also love it when you're podcasting, right? Podcasting and face-to-camera videos are very, very similar when it comes to storytelling because you're walking people through each of the different plot points verbally and visually. You guys are literally sitting here right now watching me. If you're watching this on social media or YouTube, if you're watching me talk, you're listening to me talk, you're staying engaged because you're verbally and visually being stimulated. Same thing with your face-to-camera videos, but with your emails, because it's not necessarily super visual, you have to make sure that the caption, the written email has very engaging verbal hooks, and each of the plot points stays engaging with very creative writing, very descriptive words, emotional feeling words. You also want to set the scene visually so people can see in their head, since they're not seeing in a video or an actual caption, what is happening in that story. I would say you want to use all 5 senses. You want to make sure that people could see the story, they could hear the story, what would it sound like, they could feel the story, they could smell the story, they could touch the story. What would all of those plot points hear, taste, feel, smell, and see? What would all of it be in each of those 5 senses? Create descriptive language around those things for each of those plot points so people can really get a sense for being in that story rather than observing that story. So in your email, you're going to follow kind of that same cadence we already talked about of hook them in, give them a general understanding of, where you were at before, give them a main point to take home, give them a resolution to rally behind, and then you can always add obviously an engaging call to action at the end if you want to, but you want to make it as descriptive as you can. So a really great way that my clients and I really love to do this whether you are a product or service-based business, is by customer or client stories and case studies. So a lot of times, when we talk about social proof, you can use screenshots, you can use lots of different things, right? Testimonials, video testimonials, but something that is really powerful when it comes to social proof is genuine storytelling. So a lot of times for your audience, if they can resonate with where your customer or your client was before they worked with you or purchased your product, if they can feel, taste, smell, hear, and see what that before picture looked like and what it looked like after they purchased your product or after they invested in your service, and they can really see that arc and that change and the result that they were able to experience from your product or service and why and how, that is such powerful solution selling and such powerful storytelling. And it's a very natural way to solution sell. So for example, in our marketing strategy, because we know how much our audience loves social proof, we put typically 1 to 2 client case studies in our content pretty consistently, and we tell client stories. Client A came to us, they were struggling with this, and this, and they really had this goal. And so we did this, and this for them, and this is what happened. We give them that resolution, and then we give them a call to action of if you need this same result, if you want this same help, talk to us, head to the link in our bio, DM us, let's have a conversation about it. So storytelling can be a very powerful way to convey the solution that your product or service offers to your target audience. It can also be a really powerful way of getting people's attention, engaging them in your content, and getting them to be a massive fan of your brand and of your business, and really listen to what you're saying so they consume that converting content and actually purchase from you because you've taken them on this journey. You've entertained them and engaged them in a way so they never want to stop binging your content. So hopefully you guys got a nice little taste of what storytelling can look like in your content. And hopefully this inspires you to create some more engaging content for your audience and take them on journeys. People love storytelling content. They love to rally behind a result. They love to rally behind a resolution. And people love to hear people's rags to riches stories as well. So hopefully this gave you guys a really good understanding of storytelling in your content, how to do that, and you can start to go and try out storytelling content on your own. And if you guys have any questions about how to storytell in your content or how to warm your audience up or convert them into a sale and you want some help, DM us on Instagram. We'd love to answer those questions for you guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye guys.